bipartisan committee. Here to discuss, former federal prosecutor Shanlon and former advisor to Vice-President Mike Pence, Olivia Troye. Olivia, let me start with you. Do you think Ivanka Trump will voluntarily cooperate with the committee? She did try to get her father to call off the mob that day. She clearly cares about her reputation. What do you think?
Look, I think she knows completely 100% the truth of what happened, but I do think that at the end of the day, it's going to come down to protecting the Trump family name, and I don't think that she'll cooperate willingly. I think she'll wait for a subpoena, maybe for some top cover, but I don't even know that she'll come forward even after receiving one.
Shan, Ivanka is the first Trump child to be asked to testify in front of the committee that we know of. What does that tell you about where the investigation is right now? I would imagine the children would be among the last people they go to, but maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, no, I think you're right, Jake. When you are approaching the kind of centerpiece of an investigation, you ideally would like to know everything else first. So by starting more at the outer reaches of it, they can come to these important witnesses knowing what those witnesses should know, and it's easier to confront them and ideally leverage them ahead of time into trying not to deceive or to hold anything back.
Olivia, in that letter sent to Ivanka Trump, the committee released a very interesting text message exchange between Trump loyalist Sean Hannity and then White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany. It suggests that Hannity texted Kayleigh McEnany on January 7th, the day after the insurrection, laying out a 5-point approach for talking to then outgoing President Trump. He started with 1, no more stolen election talk. 2, yes, impeachment and 25th Amendment are real and many people will quit, to which Kayleigh McEnany responded, love that, thank you, that is the playbook, I will help reinforce. Hannity, according to these messages, also told McEnany the White House staff should try to keep Trump away from certain people. He texted her, quote, key now, no more crazy people, to which McEnany responded, yes, 100%. We should note that Sean Hannity's show was a major place where these election lies were told. In fact, they're being sued as a result. And Kayleigh McEnany is one of the biggest election liars that we know. So what's your reaction when you see this conversation, this private conversation?
Well, it's stunning, right? It's stunning to see this full-on evidence of these types of conversations that were happening in the lead up to January 6th, but even more so, just the fact that they knew the gravity of the situation, they knew the repercussions of the possibility of what would happen and continuing down this narrative. And then even more egregious is that now they've doubled down on it, right? And the problem is not only does this narrative still exist out there, the big lie lives on, it's being used by people who are seeking public office this year. I mean, it's become sort of the Republican Party's platform is really, really the big lie, and you have to support it or you're going to get kicked out. And I think that, I think it's important to get this evidence out there to the American people so that they can see that in the lead up in that situation with Donald Trump, people knew that this type of action was worthy of impeachment. It was worthy of the 25th Amendment, that these are actual discussions happening with people like Sean Hannity.
Yeah. Shan, let me play a little clip of Kayleigh McEnany on Fox during that era, just to give you an idea of how much baseless nonsense she put out in the public sphere, but paid for by your tax dollars, by the way.
For President Trump to be ahead as far as he was at 3 a.m. in these 4 states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, and for the vote to swing by as much as it did, the probability of that in one state is 1 in 1 quadrillion.
I mean, complete nonsense. That analysis is based on the idea. It doesn't even take into account that Democrats overwhelmingly voted by mail and Republicans overwhelmingly voted that day. I mean, it's just sheer, utter crap. Does the fact that privately she seemed to be acknowledging that this stolen election stuff was not true, Shan, and the fact that she was seemed to be acknowledging to Sean Hannity that there were crazy people in Trump's sphere that were pushing this, does that make her legally liable in any way?
I think it can, Jake. I mean, if anyone is going to be held legally liable at a criminal level than those who had an awareness that they were pushing falsehoods and took active steps to make those falsehoods come true, such as the election is bad and should be overturned. They certainly could face criminal liability. I think the question here is, obviously, we're on kind of untested turf. And one issue is, in the past, when people contest elections, it's usually through courts. They're asking for recounts, etc. Here, there's a very obvious common sense line that's been crossed, which is people know that they're lying about it, and yet you're trying to use government to make that lie have an effect. That's really kind of new ground. And although it certainly feels criminal, I think the evidence may likely be there. It's a tough call for the prosecutors because it's not the typical kind of corruption they see, but at least to me, it sure is corruption.
Yeah, and Olivia, the Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney is investigating former President Trump's attempts to overturn the election results, and they've requested a special grand jury. Olivia, do you think that there will ever be, in any real sense, any accountability for Donald Trump for what he did when it came to trying to undermine the election and democracy?
I mean, we can only hope. We can only hope that this continues to work through the court system, that he gets held accountable personally. I mean, the dereliction of duty displayed on January 6th, and not only, I would say, probably in many instances, while he was in office in various scenarios, was grave. And look, what has happened here has led to additional consequences here, right? This narrative continues to undermine our democracy on a daily basis.
All right, Olivia, Shan, thanks to both of you. Really appreciate it. After President Biden